Last night we had a lightning storm, no hail, but we had a storm roll through. It got pretty wet. I found out one of my cups did not have a drain hole, but I thought it did. So checking on the plants this morning, see how they're doing, and they're doing all right. One of these got tipped over, and I picked it back up. The plant seems to be okay. They were able to survive a little bit bouncing around, apparently. So that's good news. In other words, there is no curse on the land. God has once again honored his end of the covenant, even if I have not. So, apparently God's telling the truth. Here are those plants. Or we received a compliment on them. It appears we do have different kinds of plants here. Okay, and here's the one that was filled up with water. Just picked it up and cut a little drain hole in it. You know, little mistakes can be fixed. Little mistakes are forgivable. Everyone makes mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Not one is righteous. Only God is good. And so we do have plants. We have a harvest, even though... that one's a carrot, so it's a weird-looking one. Or a radish or something. Anyway, some of these are going to be different looking, but they should look a little bit like their brothers, shouldn't they? And then we have, so that I don't have to water as much, we have a coating, a protection. This cage will protect it from intruders, invaders, birds, pests, rodents maybe. But also there's a covering of sawdust to protect it from losing moisture. So it'll collect moisture during the night and disperse it. I don't have to water it as much. I've got rows and rows of things. You'll see them as they pop up in the next few days or so. Exactly as I predicted, this graft did not take. But surprisingly, it's not as dead as quick as I might have thought. It's actually maintaining more moisture than it would have if it had been tossed on the pile. This was one that was tossed on the pile and was dried out, even more so than it is now, and is, I would say, less dried out than it was when I put it on there. Very interesting. So we've got this little bud here. We'll watch and see what happens. But there is an example of things might be working out a little better than you would expect. I'll give you another example. What do all the experts say? They say, do not plant your things in wood chips, because that's no good. They're not going to be able to grow. This thing, which, as you can see, has damage, has new sprouts coming up. This one is a brand new strawberry sprout that has popped up. And apparently, it didn't listen to the experts. See, plants don't read books, so they don't know that they're supposed to just die off. And so you give them moisture and nutrients, and even if you have this pH-killing wood chips, they're going to be able to survive if they can. You know, they don't want to die, so they won't if you don't kill them. Here, we're doing our best to kill this plant over here, this tomato, and stopping it from being able to grow, sticking it among the thorns and everything. We can sort of give it a trellis and sort of try to train it up on a little trellis. I'm giving it thorns for protection from rabbits that might want to gnaw on it. They see the thorns and they run away the other. They don't want to take the risk of munching on something. But again, here is the plant was wilting when I bought it. It was wilting, and it has not gotten worse. It has apparently gotten better. Now, it hasn't exploded in growth yet, but I'm assuming that's because at the roots there, what we call compost tea has not developed and made its way down into the roots to feed the plant. But it's been kept moist enough. It's maintained its greenness. I don't know if it'll bear fruit this season, but it's a good experiment. And if not, we'll use it to take some cuttings, maybe overwinter it that way and clone the plant for next year. Or maybe, heck, we'll just leave some of it out here to struggle out the winter and see what happens. Probably not much. So we do have a sunflower here popping up. And I know it's a sunflower because others in this row have popped up that are also a sunflower, like this one here. And another one may be up here. It might have gotten munched on or something. I don't see it. But there was a few sunflowers popping up. And it appears we have an unwelcome guest. This, I'm going to guess, is not a sunflower because it looks like one of those. So we are retarding the growth of those so that we can have our sunflowers. So we just pull that up. In theory, as this softens the ground, it'll be easier and easier to pull weeds, so we won't have the competition anymore. Another thing I could do, if I wanted to suppress the weeds a little more, is to put a paper plate around this with a hole, pull the plant up through the hole, put the paper plate down, cover that with wood chips, and allow that to suppress the grass, weeds, etc. even further, so that it can't grow, it doesn't have any opportunities. The plant gets all the nutrients and all the sunlight. Without sunlight, it can't grow. You know, I didn't make the rules, I just live here. Over here, on our other bed, as you can see, the one with the 3 stakes in a row. Okay. I don't know if you can see there 3 stakes in a row. 1, 2, 3 stakes. Okay. We have our row of our plants, and popping up all of the same kind here in a row. I've done something which is a little less than scientific, which is what I always intended to do, is to throw, if they grew, is I was going to put some of these chips down from another elsewhere where they have been composting already. So this is partially pre-composted matter that's been planted, and here we have the row of little green things. As you can, there we go, as you can see, in a line all the way out there. So that is our row that has popped up, and I'm expecting another row or 2 to pop up down here. Okay, and in this trench that maybe you can see now over here. So that's the 3rd trench. I'm expecting some things will sprout. And by now, if you don't write it down, you're never going to know. I've already forgotten what the heck it is I planted there. And you probably know. Oh, dwarf Siberian kale, that's what it was. All those packets that I lost and mixed up. I found both of them, by the way. They were just in the wrong packages. Don't know quite how well you can see this, but I got my compost pile mostly chipped down. And all I wanted for my compost pile was to be left alone, but they kept messing with us. And so we had to throw them into the chipper. So that's what we do with the branches that are undesirable, so we put them in the wood chipper and get rid of them, because that's all you can do. And you've tried everything else, you've tried, you've been patient, you've been loving, you've been forgiving. All of a sudden, you know, these branches keep messing with you, toss them in the wood chipper and finally get rid of them, because they won't break down and submit to the will of the compost pile. The compost pile will have to just digest them out of existence. And with a little help from man, who God has put here for a reason, because it is the only thing that can get rid of these black locust branches one way or another. And if the wood chipper won't take it, that's okay. We take the larger pieces, use them as firewood or charcoal, and we just burn them. We toss them in the ovens and cast them aside. That's how we do with those branches that are undesirable. Here is something so green, so lush, it must have been something I direct seeded. So I am going to assume that plant, because of its age, it's either a weed seed or it is something I planted. Now, I know what the local stuff is over here. It looks like this. This is just, you know, junk. But some of these look a little different, so maybe they're food. I'm going to go ahead and let them express themselves with their freedom of expression that's been given to them by the children of God over here in this land of freedom. And they're going to have a chance to express whether or not they're food, or whether they're going to bow down. And as these come up, we will know the difference between the weeds, and we give them time. Give them time to decide, are you going to be food, are you going to serve me, or am I going to have to cut you down because you failed to do so? Well, until we know the difference between one and the other, we're going to let them grow up together until they have finally expressed whether or not they are of service to God, or whether they are an enemy to the servants of God. Left long enough, you don't have to buy seed. Anything will go to seed and will become seed for you and will sit and dry out here. At a certain point, this is dry enough that it has become the kind of seed which can be harvested, collected, and it can be put... Damn, mosquito. That's brazen. All right. It can be put in all of the places where we need seed to grow. So if we get ourselves some grass seed, right, it has gone to seed, right, we collect it up and we can scatter it on the ground where we want that seed to grow into lush green grass. We can help nature a little bit. We don't want to help nature too much. We just want to put the seed where we want. Plant A from over here, we want it to grow right there. Also, if you recognize that something is a threat to your garden, you want to pull it up when it's young, earlier that you get it, the better and the easier it is to come out. Try doing that with one of those big, huge roots, and you can see it's undesirable, same plant, but much harder to uproot. So the sooner that you get some of these undesirables, the better. And you can find them. They'll be in among their brothers, but you'll see that, hey, this is an undesirable one, and you can just quickly and easily uproot it before it has sprouted lots of roots, and you can say, oh, this is a good one, but this one's no good. Very easy to uproot it just as soon as you see it, right? So we have a provision for doing so. In the Old Testament, it tells us how and when to uproot things before they become big kingdoms and branches and all that stuff. You don't have to wait until it's a huge problem. You already know it's inevitably going to be a chip off the old block. All of its progeny are going to be no good, so you uproot them early on so they don't become a problem. If we had done this, the sooner and earlier we did this, easier it would be. But we are cursed by the fact we've not done so early in this yard. Now we will have to be extra vigilant to uproot all of them and to get rid of them. This is what we call a bad tree. It will never bear good fruit. We've given it time, years, many years, to bear good fruit. It never will. This is a bad tree, and so it only bears bad fruit. It's marketed as an ornamental because it bears bad fruit. They've just dressed it up and given it a pretty name, but the fruits that it grows are tiny, and not good tasting, and not nutritious, not good for you. It's no good. So all these fruits are going to have to go. Basically, one thing you can do is graft new things onto it, but grafting good fruit into a bad tree, it's going to be less productive. So when you have a bad tree, it's better to cut it down. So as far as I know,